We're recording. Yay. Thanks everybody for popping in. I appreciate that you took the time out tonight to be on the call. Why did my screen stop sharing? Oh. Cynthia's out and then she came back in. All right, let's try this again. All right. So yeah, thanks for being on the call. And of course, everybody's going to get this tomorrow in the morning. Go ahead and mute yourselves if you're not already. And then if you've got a question, you can unmute and shout out, but that way we'll eliminate some background noise. All right, this week, the focus is hot flashes. The focus is hot flashes, yeah. And I don't know if anybody on the screen has had a hot flash yet. Maybe, yeah, definitely. I have for sure. They always started for me along my spine and seemed to radiate outwards from there. And they pretty much stayed from along my spine, radiating out into my torso and then into my shoulders, my neck and my head mostly. I mean, I never really felt them much in my legs. I don't know if anybody does, but yeah, insane hot flashes. Absolutely, Stevie. So, but the good news is we're not alone, because about 80% of women in the US will experience hot flashes. And consider this. This is fascinating. These are fascinating stats, I think. Menopause usually occurs between the ages of 45 and 55. Okay, now this is the age bracket in which women are most likely to be moving into leadership, top leadership positions in their professions and in their careers. And menopause generally lasts between, and we're taking perimenopause into consideration with this, typically lasts between 7 and 14 years. Sorry if anybody's going, what? But yeah, between 7 and 14 years. And what this tells me is that millions of menopausal women are coming into management, leadership, and power roles, basically, while experiencing anywhere from mild to severe symptoms with regards to hot flashes. And so we live in this civilized country where we're expected to go through this powerful change as though it were nothing. And in the meantime, we're bombarded by voices, not only internal voices, but external voices as well, to do whatever we can to stay young, to appear young. And by all means, never let anybody see us sweat. You remember that deodorant commercial from back in the day? Never let them see you sweat. I totally remember that, and Anjali. Those are like the two. I can bring home the bacon. I don't know why those two commercials keep like the songs keep resonating with me when I'm researching and studying women's health programs. Those two just keep showing up for me. So in the workplace, particularly in corporate America, hot flashes are seemingly so often, just the punchline to a joke. I mean, we can talk about breast cancer pretty openly. We can talk about obesity. We can talk about diabetes. We can talk about pregnancy. But talking about menopause is virtually taboo. And then this is changing, to be sure. This is absolutely changing. And we're part of that change. And we can normalize this conversation in the workplace. We can talk about it. We can acknowledge it. And rather than approaching this from a place of embarrassment or maybe guilt or shame, we can approach it from a place of confidence. And instead of maybe laughing along with the joke, being the butt of the joke, we can instead change the narrative. And when we're experiencing a hot flash or a power surge, I like to call them, just standing up and saying, I'll have to excuse myself for a few minutes. I'm having a hot flash and I need a break. And then just boom, turn on those high heels and walk out the door and don't even wait for a response. And to me, that's empowerment. And that's much more confident than than allowing ourselves to be kind of scoffed because we're women and we're experiencing, this natural transition. I'm all for reframing our relationship with these really extraordinary surges of heat. In fact, Susan Weed, I've mentioned her before, and she'll keep coming up. She's a world-renowned botanist, herbalist, women's health advocate, and she compares hot flashes to three major life experiences: anger, major experience; orgasm, major experience; and enlightenment, another major experience. So she encourages women to flip the switch and view flashes as waves of energy. And for those of you that practice yoga, thinking of waves of like Kundalini or prana, chi, or life force. In fact, she's been known to say that hot flashes are basically kind of a training ground for the ultimate Kundalini experience, if you will. When we think about flashes, there are certain components that are recognized as triggers: spicy and acidic foods. I mean, in Ayurvedic medicine, we have a saying that like increases like, meaning like qualities are going to increase like qualities in the body. So if we're already running hot, spicy and acidic foods are going to just contribute to continuing to build that heat. Alcohol, another one. And for some reason, red wine seems to be more of a trigger for women than white. I can't speak to that myself. When I did drink, wine was not my thing. I was more of a vodka girl, but and that was way back in the day, well before I ever had a hot flash. So I can't speak to that. But white sugar, and this is, I mean, you're already ditching the white sugar, which is great. You're already, I think most of you, eliminating the caffeine. I think most of you have eliminated, or at least are drastically reducing, I hope, your alcohol intake. But also intense exercise has been shown to be a trigger for hot flashes, and also anger, particularly if it's anger that you're unable to express for any number of reasons. So when we look at these hot flashes, these are in medical jargon, they're just called VSM, right? Vasomotor symptoms. And when we look at these hot flashes or hot flushes from a Western or conventional perspective, we're looking at fluctuating hormone levels. We're looking at these fluctuating hormone levels that are the result of stress, both external and internal stress. And stress is going to keep coming up as something that will always be at the top of the list, needing to be addressed when it comes to HPA axis dysfunction, endocrine imbalance, and of course, hormonal fluctuations. So internal and then external stresses, lifestyle, and environmental chemicals that disrupt our endocrine system, and therefore have a great deal to do with the disruption of our hormone balance. Now, these environmental chemicals are both man-made and natural, and what they do is they mimic or interfere with our endocrine system, therefore our hormones, and they're linked with developmental, reproductive, brain, and immune conditions. That brings us to your big action for this week. So last week we began cleaning up our diet by removing the big six, right? The items, the ingredients that trigger inflammation, that disrupt our endocrine systems, and that send our hormones into haywire. So this week, we're going to clean up our kitchen. Now, I don't want this to overwhelm, so just hear me out. Listen through, and then, one step at a time, one drawer at a time, or one kitchen cabinet at a time. But this week we clean up the kitchen, which means that we are actually removing xenoestrogens, and that's really a thing, that are found lurking in our cabinets and cupboards. So what's a xenoestrogen? It's spelled with an X, and a xenoestrogen is any natural or synthetic compound introduced into the body that mimics the effects of estrogen or promotes its production. So last week we talked about estrogen dominance, right? So xenoestrogens are they are the foundation of estrogen dominance for the most part. They're any natural or synthetic compound that get introduced into the body. So it's not something that we produce, something that we're bringing in from the outside that mimics the effects of estrogen or promotes its production. So for example, plastics contain hormone disrupting chemicals such as BPA. BPA mimics estrogen in our body, and it places an enormous burden on our liver. And there's a deeper dive you can take, and I think I didn't get it onto the screen, but I will put it into the Facebook group because I can't remember if it's in the manual or not. But there's an article called Xenoestrogens: What They Are, How to Avoid Them, and I'll link it into the Facebook group. So what we know about BPA, this is bisphenol A, is what BPA stands for. It's a known estrogen mimicking ingredient. We find it in can liners, like cans of beans, for example, can liners, water bottles, those infamous plastic water bottles that I think most people are very aware of now, the not only the damage they do to our bodies, but the damage that they're doing to the environment. So I think that's probably preaching to the choir when I talk about plastic water bottles. But if you have any lurking around in your car or in your refrigerator, toss them. And thermal receipts, that you get from a restaurant, or you get from that printout from the Quick Trip gas station, any of those receipts that are slick, just laden with bisphenol A. So you want to, we get it, and we also get it through our diet. The latest research shows that it's widespread throughout the US population. In fact, one study conducted by the CDC found detectable levels of BPA in 93% of its subjects. And then a new study, which I've got linked here, or I've got the group here, a study from Harvard School of Public Health. Researchers found that participants who drank for a week, just 1 week, from polycarbonate bottles, so we're talking about the plastic water bottles, and also these are the hard plastic baby bottles, right? So any of you all have young moms in your life, just something to be aware of. So the study, after 1 week of drinking from these polycarbonate bottles, showed a 2/3 increase in their urine of bisphenol A, of BPA. BPA exposure has been found to interfere with reproductive development in laboratory animals, and it's been linked to cardiovascular disease and diabetes in humans. So what can we do? Well, I mean, we can avoid buying things in cans, but that's pretty hard, especially when we're trying to meal prep for the week, and we have careers and families and a lot of demands, and sometimes it's easier to buy a can of chickpeas than to buy them in a bag. And so we can buy less. Now you'll start to see, if you haven't already, there are a number of companies that are making cans that don't have the BPA liner, or they have a liner made that doesn't have BPA in it, and they're very proud of it to say on the label BPA free. Okay, that's great. What I do, and I buy canned stuff because I need to be fast, and I need to be quick and easy. So when I get things in a can or get things in a plastic bag, it's part of my bringing the groceries in to the house. I just immediately open them up and pour them into a glass container, or I pull the salad out of the plastic, the spinach out of the plastic container, and I immediately put it into a glass container with a snap closed lid. I mean, it's a little thing, but it's something. So you can cut back on cans, you can look for BPA cans, you can avoid putting the polycarbonate plastics into the microwave or the dishwasher, of course. I think probably most of us have heard of these studies. They've been around for quite some time, because the heat may break them down over time and allow the BPA to leach into food. So, using glass, using porcelain, using stainless steel, any of those will be much better than keeping things into the plastic. Now, dioxin. Dioxin is considered one of the dirty dozen. So if you go to, I think it's the Environmental Working Group, EWG's website, just Google dirty dozen and you'll get a list of the biggest offenders when it comes to chemical compounds that are really jacking with our systems. Dioxin is incredibly toxic, highly toxic, and it's used, what it's made for and used for is to soften plastic. So like to make a PVC pipe, to make plastic that rounds or curves. That's what it's used for. Or think of if you've got a plastic shower curtain or a curtain liner, plastic shower curtain liner, dioxin is a main ingredient in that. Dioxin is also used, and this is where I think it's an evil culprit. Dioxin is also used in our lotions to help lotion penetrate our skin, to keep our skin soft, and also it holds on to fragrance longer. Anytime you see fragrance on a label, and we're going to get to the bathroom sweep down the road. So, but I'm just planting a seed for what's coming next week. So dioxin is, it's the unwanted byproduct of a manufacturing process. Dioxins are released through certain combustion processes. Example, PVC releases dioxin when it's burned, as well as when it's produced. So PVC is all over the place, right? I mean, really, it's going to be difficult to completely avoid PVC, but just being mindful that it's a two-edged sword. Not only is dioxin released when it's produced, but as well as when it's burned, when it's taken to the dump. It's highly toxic, as I said. It affects a number of organs and systems. It absorbs into our fat tissue, and it's stored for up to 7 to 11 years. It can stay in our body. Research shows that short-term exposure results in skin lesions, patchy darkening of the skin. Son of a gun. I am recording. Okay. For a second, I thought I wasn't recording. I was like, oh, son of a gun. Dark, patchy, dark skin, altered liver and thyroid production, and that's all just short-term exposure. Now, long-term exposure gets quite a bit more serious, with resulting in impaired immune and endocrine systems, impaired reproductive functions. And most of our exposure, like over 90%, according to studies, show that our exposure is through the food supply. And this is primarily found in meat and dairy, and then fish and shellfish. So meat and dairy first, fish and shellfish second. Protecting our food supply is critical. And I would add to that, knowing our farmers, knowing our ranchers, being on a first name basis of the vendors at the farmers markets. That to me is also critical. In 1999, high levels of dioxin were found in poultry and eggs. This was in Belgium, from contaminated animal feed due to illegally disposed PVC waste industrial oil. Likewise, in 2008 in Ireland, pork and pork products, tons of pork and pork products were recalled for much the same reason: contaminated feed. So the pollution is rampant on our globe right now. It has been, and it just continues to climb. So knowing our rancher, knowing where if you're going to eat meat, know where you're getting your meat. And there's a study there for if you want to dive in a little deeper. You can take a screenshot and jump onto that study. And then phthalates. And I'm going to end. There's a lot more chemicals, but I'm going to end with phthalates. Make sure I'm okay. So phthalates, these are chemicals that are found in plastics. They're found in children's toys, foods, oils, and again, we have that ubiquitous fragrance. Dairy has the highest concentration and the highest source of dairy. I'm sorry, the highest concentration and the highest source of dietary exposure, because consider how particularly commercial cattle, dairy cattle are milked. All the pipes, all the plastic piping in the I want to say in the barn, but I know they're not in a barn. Well, maybe they're in a barn, but you know what I'm talking about. So the dairy is coming through all those plastic pipes, all the plastic tubing that's used in milk production. Phthalates have been linked to low sperm counts and low sperm mobility, linked to hormone changes, birth defects, particularly in the male reproductive system. Phthalates have been linked to obesity, diabetes, and thyroid irregularities. And then we're back at labels, or I mean, we're back at fragrance again. And what's interesting is that under our current law, phthalates can simply be labeled as fragrance when they make up 20% or more of the product. So these are some of the, down below on that fourth bullet point, the DBP, DNOP, et cetera. Those are some things to keep in mind when you're looking at labels. And again, a lot of this will come into play more so when we start looking at our bathroom cabinets and cupboards, but just considering the bottom line for the kitchen is try to get rid of as much plastic as is realistic for you. And like I said at the beginning, just one step at a time. If this sounds overwhelming, just like take it on board. Just take it on board. It's not a pass-fail program. Just for education, and do what you can with the time, the capacity, and the bandwidth that you have. All right. So there's more, but that's where we're going to stop. Just those are the three biggies, I think. So when it comes to sweeping out the kitchen, I want you make a plan. Order your glass jars, or get thee to Costco or Sam's Club or somewhere and buy your glass containers and glass jars. Get a trash bag and get to it. Maybe take some items to Goodwill if they're still in good working order. What about baggies, saran wrap? Yeah, baggies and saran wrap, they fall under the plastic category as well. Sorry. So I should have brought one into the room with me tonight, but for vegetables, what I do is when I come in from the store, I have these mesh baggies. And I immediately transfer, I pull the kale, the veggies, the lettuces, et cetera. I wash them, and then I put them in these mesh baggies that have like a drawstring at the top, and they're recycled material. And Lori, I think I remember it being you that in the program last spring, you had something that was really cool. And if it wasn't you, I apologize for putting you on the spot, but if it was you, if you'll post it to Facebook, that would be great, because I remember a couple of babes had some great alternatives to plastic Ziploc bags. You know, go stainless with your pots and pans, cast iron if you can. Avoid the nonstick cookware. It's coated, obviously. So go organic when possible. So I think some of these are, you've seen these suggestions before. All right, so that's the Western perspective. Now let's dive into the Ayurvedic perspective. And it would seem that hot flashes, because of all the heat and the sweat, would be completely a pitta issue, right? And I'm not going to take the time right now to dive into Vata, Pitta, and Kapha and the elements. There's plenty of information out there for you to get a little background, but suffice it to say that Pitta is fire. And so it would make sense, it seems that it would make sense that hot flashes are strictly a Pitta concern. However, the dosha that is responsible for movement, that is responsible for erratic movement and all over the place movement, that's Vata. And whenever Vata is a participant in a condition, Vata trumps everything. And frankly, Vata dosha is responsible for almost 80% of our conditions anyway. So it would seem that we should be addressing pitta, and we should, to a degree we should, but more so than addressing pitta, we need to treat vata. Ideally, we treat vata during our pitta time of life. So if this is like completely Greek to you, just bear with me for a second. So Ayurvedic medicine, Ayurveda philosophy teaches that we go through phases of life that are governed or directed, so to speak, by Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Kapha is our young age, birth to about 13, 14, 15. Pitta time of life is post puberty and up to about our late 40s, early 50s. Then we move into our vata time of life. So if there's anybody in the group, anybody on the screen that's maybe not fully menopausal yet, maybe not fully perimenopausal yet, start addressing vata now. Start addressing all the movement, all of the wind now in your life, and it will serve you so well. There's the theory in Ayurvedic medicine is that the doshas get out of whack when there's either too much or too little, right? We all have Vata, Pitta, and Kapha that make us up. But when there's too much or too little, an insufficiency, deficiency, or an excess of that dosha and those elements, that's when we get out of whack. And when we're in our Pitta midlife, when we should be on fire, we're building families, we're building bank accounts, we're building, manifesting our dreams and building careers. So we want to have that fire. But knowing that Vata is coming next, we want to make sure that even while we are taking advantage of the fire that comes with the territory of being in our 30s and 40s, we want to be prepping ourselves for what's around the corner next, so we don't fall into Vata time of life totally out of whack. And how do we treat Vata? If Vata is all things erratic and windy and mobile, we treat Vata with routine first and foremost. Routine, routine, and more routine. Then we treat Vata by reducing stress. Now, listen, if we don't have a lot of stress already, then we have plenty of yin hormones. If you remember that from last week, the yin hormones are our nourishing hormones, right? So that's our estrogen, that's our progesterone. So if we don't have a lot of stress in our lives, we have plenty of these yin hormones after menopause. Okay, yeah, our yin hormones naturally begin to decline about age 35. And yes, they drop pretty significantly at menopause. This means that if our yang hormones, our yang stress activity doesn't drop as well, or if we don't learn how to tolerate it better, then we can use up the low levels of yin that we do have and throw ourselves out of whack. So think back to last week for a hot minute. The yin hormones are the estrogen and progesterone. Those are our cool, our nourishing, our building hormones. The yang hormones, those are the stress hormones. Those are the cortisol. Those are the adrenaline and the epinephrine or the norepinephrine, they're called. Those are the like, let's go. And cortisol gets a bad rap. And definitely it's responsible. Well, maybe our lack of controlling it is what's responsible for so much adrenal dysfunction and HPA axis dysregulation. But we've got to have cortisol. We need cortisol to get out of bed in the morning. We need cortisol to attack a presentation at the office. So we've got to have cortisol. It's not all bad. The catch is staying in balance. Right. Even as we go through these fluctuations, if our yin, the nourishing hormones, are dropping, and remember from last week, if the progesterone drops faster then we're out of whack. We're in this estrogen dominant state. So, all right, what we know is that post-menopause, we still produce 40 to 60, anywhere from 40 to 60% of our pre-menopausal hormones. So stay with me. And what we know is that estrogen falls. We know this. Estrogen falls at menopause, but really only by 40 or 50%. And what we know is that we still have the ability to synthesize our sex hormones sufficient for natural post-menopausal needs through our adrenal glands and our body tissues. Okay, remember, estrogen is stored in fat. Estrogen is produced by our adrenal glands, as well as other organs in the body, not just the ovaries. So estrogen, oh, here comes Mimi. So estrogen deficiency may be due to long-term excess of stress hormones, draining our yin, our sex hormones. Okay, so let me read that again. I think that's important. And I hope that the yin yang talk is making sense. So estrogen deficiency, as estrogen falls at menopause, may be due to a long-term excess of yang hormones, the stress hormones, a long-term excess of cortisol, a long-term excess of living in fight or flight, which drains our yin hormones, right? The nourishing, the estrogen, the progesterone. So this is where addressing lifestyle comes into play. Now we can always add more estrogen through HRT, hormone replacement therapy. Absolutely. And there's a time and a place for that. I'm not anti-HRT. I hope that we will all look at our diet and lifestyle first and see if we can't contribute to balance in that way. But there's a time and a place for HRT. However, going on to HRT without calming the stress in our lives, along with it, is like pouring water into a bucket with a hole in it. I mean, the bottom line is we have to address the stress. We have to address cortisol. We have to address HPA axis dysregulation. We need to slow down. We absolutely need to slow down. Okay, so by the time we reach menopause, many of us have already drained our reserves of yin, right? Estrogen and progesterone. We've already drained our reserves of yin in service to the yang. We've drained estrogen and progesterone in service to cortisol, in service to adrenaline, right? And now that our ovaries are producing a smaller quantity, if even we have ovaries, our adrenal glands are supposed to kick into production. But what if our adrenal glands are already burnt out from the last 20 years or so of our lifestyle, or of the corporate setting, or any number of challenges over the last 20 years? We're living in the pitta time of life, remember, during our 30s and 40s, and that's when we're go, go, go. But if we go, go, go at the expense of rest, 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 if there's no replenishment after the fire, then we are absolutely kicked out of balance. Our adrenal glands will be absolutely tapped and tired and unable to deliver our postmenopausal requirements. So I go back to, if anybody on the screen isn't quite hitting menopause yet, or if anyone on the screen you have women in your lives who are in their 30s and their 40s, maybe you've got children, or the gal at work, if we can express to them to begin now balancing their stress with nourishment, it'll serve them so well. So we have to deal with vata and bringing down the stress. We have to deal with pitta, of course, but mostly it's vata and bringing down the stress. We know that stress impacts our digestion, it impacts our sleep, our nervous system, and our endocrine function, it's essential that it's addressed as early as possible. And as we do that, addressing our stress and bringing our stress levels down at least a notch, we have to start loving our liver. And you've started your Love Your Liver protocol today. Yay! We've got to clean and stabilize our liver because it is key in removing excess estrogen from our body. And the liver removes excess estrogens from our body through the colon. So it is imperative, ladies, that you're having a bowel movement on the daily. And if you're not yet, shoot me an email or send me a private Facebook message, and we need to have a little chat. So we need to talk about the triphala. We need to talk about increasing fiber. We may want to bring magnesium into the picture if necessary, but and definitely more water into your life. So the livers remove excess estrogen so that normal levels can be maintained. However, poor diet and lifestyle can overwork our livers, causing estrogen to back up and recirculate back into the body. And nobody wants that because the estrogen's already been somewhat processed. And then when it backs up and recirculates into the body, it throws all kinds of gears out of whack. It throws all kinds of wrenches into the system. So a good Love Your Liver lifestyle is lots of water. Starting your day with water and lemon. Of course, now we're starting our day with turmeric and aloe juice. It's fine. Water and lemon can come next, or you can do the water and lemon first and then shoot down your turmeric and aloe juice. Foods, not eating past 6 if possible, or 7 at the latest. Ideally, you're not eating 3 hours at least before you go to sleep at night. Our livers really kick into gear between the hours of 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. Chinese medicine looks at the hours between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. So, but you see that window there, that is when our liver, which I refer to as the nighttime janitor of the human body, that's when it really clocks in and gets to work. And it can really only do its job if you're horizontal and out and not interrupting things with cheese and crackers, or with shopping on Amazon, or balancing the checkbook. I mean, you need to, the liver would prefer that you have left the office and turn the lights out so that it can come in with the janitorial crew and clean the office building. So allowing yourself a good 12 or 14 hours between dinner and breakfast. Time restricted eating, these days it's called intermittent fasting. Time restricted eating it's been part of the Ayurvedic lexicon for years. We just didn't have that cool name for it, of intermittent fasting. And of course, being asleep by 10. Those 3, I would say, are the foundation for loving your liver. Plenty of water, hydration, not eating past 10, giving yourself a good overnight fast, and getting asleep before 10 if possible. So let's look at some botanicals, and then I'll jump into the questions in the chat box. Hopefully, yeah, we should have time. So first and foremost, aloe vera and turmeric. This is your aloe tonic that you're drinking twice a day, and you're going to drink this twice a day for the next 3 weeks. This week, the next week, and the next. You'll need to get more aloe vera juice. I don't think you'll need more turmeric, but you'll need to get more aloe vera juice. You can find it at your local, you might even be able to find it at Walmart's, but you can find it most local stores. Look for the inner fillet if you have a choice. Look for something with the inner fillet. So in Sanskrit, aloe vera is called Kumari, Kumari. Kumari means virgin or young maiden. And aloe vera is a rejuvenative that's widely praised for keeping our skin and our reproductive system young, supple, and dewy. And I know that I would like a young, supple, and dewy reproductive system as well as skin. So turmeric and aloe both support liver function, and they both support bile formation. Turmeric is considered heating in the Ayurvedic world, and aloe vera is considered cooling in the world of Ayurveda. So in combination, these two ingredients tend to land pretty neutral. So just a half a teaspoon, don't overdo it on the turmeric, and a quarter cup to a half a cup of the aloe vera juice if you need it, twice a day. And go ahead, as I said at the beginning, go ahead and take your liver support along with the aloe vera juice. Next week, we're going to start increasing the liver support, because next week and the third week of the liver cleanup is when we really start getting busy with our liver. Okay, so back to botanical boosts for hot flashes in particular. Black cohosh is a root that is used to relieve symptoms. It also enhances bone formation. So you'll see black cohosh come up time and again during the program, particularly on week 5 when we get to bone strength. And it's also reported to improve sleep. So you'll see it again next week as well. Most studies on black cohosh have used this product called Remifemin. You see it in the parentheses below. And Remifemin is an over-the-counter product. You can pick it up I've seen it at Walmart, I've seen it at Walgreens, CVS, you can get it on Amazon. It's the leading natural therapy that's most commonly used for menopausal symptoms. Now, if you did an extract of straight black cohosh, you would use 1 dropper full 1 to 3 times a day for the duration of a 2-ounce tincture. Remifemin comes in pill form, and you would take it as directed. Remifemin is just the company's name for black cohosh, the company that makes Remifemin. If you look at the ingredients on the label, all it is black cohosh. Now, Remifemin also makes a product called Remifemin PM, which is black cohosh, along with, I believe, valerian root, maybe passion flower. There's a few other herbal ingredients in there that help with sleep. So if your hot flashes are really prominent at night sweats, yay, you could try the Remifemin PM. Now, keep in mind that everyone is unique and is going to absorb and metabolize differently. I've seen Remifemin work great for many, many, many women. I've had a couple of clients that are like, meh, didn't do anything for me. So, but bear in mind that it is one of the top studied herbal supports for menopause and menopausal symptoms. Motherwort and elderflower, now these are not commonly found in grocery stores or even Whole Foods, but you can find extracts online. So elderflower is a specific herb for resetting the body's thermostat. You can use it several times a day, and you could some studies indicate that you could have results within just a couple of days. You would take 25 to 50 drops at a time. It is an alcohol base, so you could take it straight, just put the drops onto a teaspoon and toss it back, or you could mix it with water to make it a bit more palatable. Same with motherwort. These are tinctures that I'm talking about. Extract and tincture, I'll use them interchangeably. Motherwort is shown to be especially beneficial for night sweats. And then as an added bonus, motherwort also relieves stress and anxiety, reduces hot flashes. It also stops palpitations. Those often come along with hot flashes as well. Motherwort has been shown to steady the mind and strengthen the heart also. So there's a lot going on with motherwort. It's a fan favorite of many herbalists and botanists around the world. With motherwort, typically you could expect to see results within 2 weeks. Again, there's no hard and fast rules when it comes to herbal medicine and botanicals in particular, because we just don't have a lot of studies on them. Europe studies these ingredients much more than the States. So you can do some digging online and find some studies from Germany in particular. But so these are the common herbal dosing instructions. So motherwort and elderflower, two other options for you. Then I want to talk to you about infusions, and infusions are going to come up again in week 5 when we talk about bone health. Infusions are when we take a large amount, like a handful. And literally, I mean, so many botanists and herbalists will say, just take a handful. You know, there's no like a half a cup or a cup, just a handful of dried herbs that are steeped or brewed for a long period of time versus a medicinal tea, right? A medicinal tea is a small amount of herbs, maybe a teaspoon, maybe 2 teaspoons of herbs steeped in hot water for a short period of time. 5 minutes, maybe 7 minutes at the most. Whereas an infusion is a giant handful of herbs dropped into a mason jar, like a 16, 24-ounce mason jar, then water poured over top, and then let it steep. Let it steep overnight, let it steep for 8 hours minimum. And there you go, there's your infusion. You can leave the herbs at the bottom, or you can strain it into a different jar. And infusions will typically last 2 to 3 days if you'll keep them in the refrigerator. I'm not a fan of drinking iced anything, but particularly during hot flash challenges, power surge challenges, if you want to drink something from the fridge, you know, of course, go for it. So you can keep these infusions in the fridge for 2 to 3 days, and you drink 1 to 2 cups a day, each day. You can, like I said, you can drink it chilled, or you can heat it and drink it like a tea. These 3 herbs, red clover, stinging nettle, garden sage, are some of the most common and most popular herbs that are used for infusions specific to menopausal changes and challenges, and especially specific to hot flashes. When we make an infusion like this, a large amount of herbs steeped for an extended period of time, the steeping process extracts more nutrients than a tincture, right? The tincture or the extract. And it also brings about more medicinal qualities than a tea. So I think infusions are fantastic. And I'm sorry I didn't put the website on the screen, but I'll tell it to you. Mountain Rose Herbs, right? Mountain Rose Herbs is my favorite place to get dried herbs. Some of you might live in an area where you have a terrific, like an herbal pharmacy that you can tap into. And if you do, please support your local herbal pharmacist. But I don't. So Mountain Rose Herbs, I trust their sourcing. And I know they do a great job. So you can go to mountainroseherbs.com. They even have a terrific blog section and an educational section. They have instructions on how to make an infusion on their website as well. You can make just a straight red clover infusion or a garden sage infusion, or you can mix and match these. I mean, I would suggest, if your resources allow, buy a half a pound or a pound or 2 of all 3 of these, and then mix and match. I mean, make an infusion with all 3 of them, see how it comes out. I find infusions to be refreshing, to be very grassy and herbally, obviously, and earthy tasting. I think they're wonderful. So yeah, so there you go. So herbal infusions. All right. Lastly, here's a couple of toddies that you can make that are super cost effective, very available in our local grocery stores. Straight up coconut water and lime. Maya Tawari, I've got several of her books here in my home office. Here's one that I'm quite fond of, Women's Power to Heal. And she is, all of her work, pretty much all of her work is dominated by supporting women through Ayurvedic medicine. So and I believe it's in this book, she has this simple recipe for coconut water and lime, and drink it every day throughout the summer months, or as long as hot flashes persist. Pomegranate and aloe juice, that's just another way, after you're done with your aloe toddy, to continue on the aloe train, if you will, to mix it with pomegranate juice and maybe a squeeze of lime. Very delicious. But I do want to go back to reiterating stress reduction being at the top of your list. These herbs, botanicals, even pharmaceuticals, really, ladies, are just an adjunct to reducing your stress, to changing our diets, and to lifestyle interventions, going to bed by 10, getting up by 6 or 7, making sure you're moving every day. They'll help. The herbs, the botanicals, even pharmaceuticals will help with symptomatic relief, but they're not going to address the underlying problem of an imbalance, primarily an imbalanced Agni. If you remember that from last week, digestive fire. So we want to make sure our digestive fire is steady. And hopefully throughout this past week, as you've been altering your diet and you're not snacking between meals, you're eating at the table in a much more mindful state, your Agni is already starting to shift to the program. So making sure the digestive fire, the Agni is steady. Removing ama is second. So scraping your tongue on the daily, making sure you're having a bowel movement on the daily, and then we can come in and rebuild. And that's when we can really begin to support and rebuild and revitalize our adrenals. All right, so let's jump into the chat box real quick. We've got just a couple more minutes. If you need to log off, please do. I'm not going to keep you long tonight. Some of these I might answer on the Facebook page, but let's see what we've got here. Is anyone else struggling with going to sleep by 10? I'm struggling hard with the sleep time and wake up time. If anybody on the screen has resonates with that, you might pop into the Facebook group and let's give each other some support around bedtime and wake up time. There's plenty of sleep hygiene rituals that we can bring into the picture, but yeah, getting to bed at a decent hour by 10 and getting up. For me, I think that we can say go to bed by 10, but you might go to bed at 10 and lie there awake until 11:30 or 12 or 12:30. So I do believe that setting an established wake up time and adhering to it. I'm going to get up at 6:30. I'm up at 6:30. I'm up at 6:30. That's how we begin resetting our circadian rhythm. And a circadian reset is critical for making sure that our sleep cycles are in line with nature. And when our sleep cycles are out of whack, our cortisol is out of whack. And there's a whole nother deep dive we can talk about with cortisol, salivary cortisol testing, and morning cortisol and nighttime cortisol. But suffice it to say, my number one recommendation would be get up at the same time every day. Over the course of a few days or maybe 2 weeks, eventually your body will become tired, your mind will become tired, and you'll find it a little bit easier to get to bed a little earlier. Earlier is a combination of easier and earlier. Yeah, we talked about plastic water pipes, PVC. Yes, most likely they are. Yeah, we talked about baggies and saran wrap. We do the liver protocol for 3 weeks. So this is week 1. This is just the toddy and the liver support tablet. Week 2 is next week. And I'm glad you brought this up, Lori, because week 2 we'll continue on the toddy. We'll continue on the liver support tablet, and we'll add the tea. Now, the tea that's in your kit that came to you, you've got 2 boxes of that tea. It's a Native American Ojibwe tea. You have 2 boxes of that. That'll get you through the last 2 weeks of the liver protocol and then some, because you just drink 2 cups of that tea a day starting next week. And then you'll continue that into the 3rd week of the liver protocol as well. And this will all be in the emails that come to you on Mondays and Fridays. When you're done with the 3-week liver protocol, you're done. Yeah, great idea. Taking the daily fiber supplement into a glass of water and squeeze some lemon juice in it. It sounds great. Yeah, that works. And yes, everything I'm saying about hot flashes is applicable to night sweats as well. They're the same thing, the same physiological manifestation, just one's happening predominantly at night. We don't know why that happens. I mean, the jury is out. Nobody has any idea. I mean, honestly, I mean, you can go to like WebMD and some of like Cleveland Clinic. Nobody has any idea why hot flashes show up. Just like, I don't know. I mean, we don't know. They just happen. And so everything gets blamed on, you know, it's a women thing. Well, okay, yeah. But I mean, so yeah, night sweats and hot flashes, synonymous with one another, just one's happening predominantly at night. No idea why. Night sweats are, yeah. Seems less since I cut out. Ah, good. That's great, Cynthia. They seem less since you cut out the naughty 6 items. Yeah, motherwort. Okay, how much black cohosh to take extract? Yes, I can repeat that. If you're going to do the extract of black cohosh, you want to take 1 dropper full 1 to 3 times a day for the duration of a 2-ounce tincture. So you can play with that. You know, I personally advocate for finding the lowest dose that will bring about the results that we're seeking. So if you can start low and slowly increase as you need to, that gets my vote. Because then, you know, if you can stop, if 1 dropper full does it, great. But if you started at 3 dropper fulls and 1 dropper full would have done it, we wouldn't know. So I always advocate there. I mean, rarely there are occasions where I'll be like, no, we need to throw the medicine chest at this and let's go strong. But I think in most situations, it's safe to start low and go slow. That's my little motto. Okay, ladies. Drink your toddy. Take your tablet. Go to bed. Or take your triphala. Go to bed. Wake up on time in the morning, get some movement in. I don't know what's happening around the rest of the country just yet, but here in Oklahoma, we're supposed to have some decent weather tomorrow, like 60s, 63 degrees, I think is what I heard before I logged on. So decent day for getting outside and moving in whatever way serves you to move. Dance, jump rope, go for a walk, but you know, move. Get your body moving. And with that, pop onto the Facebook page and let us know how things are going. And let's start some chatter. I tell you, let's start some chatter tonight, tomorrow morning about sleep and get some ideas tossed out there for good sleep habits, what's worked for you. And there we go. I'll see you on Facebook and I'll pop you an email on Friday to set you up for the weekend. And wait, we got one more question. Yeah, hey, thanks, Jennifer. Stevie, yeah, I would say get the triphala on board. I think everybody, even if you're having a daily bowel movement, particularly now, as we move into the 3 weeks of the liver protocol, go for the triphala. Again, start low and go slow. Start with 1, see how that works for you. You don't want to have loose stools, but you want to be sure you're having a solid, like a number 4 on a Bristol stool scale. You want to be sure you're having a bowel movement at least once every day, a good solid, you know, good quantity bowel movement, because as we start cleaning up our liver, all that toxicity that we've been storing for 20, 30, 40 years is going to try to come out through the colon. And let's get it out through the colon as best we can. If it doesn't come out through the colon, it's going to work its way, try to work its way out of one of the other pathways of elimination, our skin, our breath, our urine. So let's try to move everything out the poop chute as best we can. Okay. All right. Any questions? You can pop them onto the Facebook page, because probably somebody else has the question too, and they would love to see that they're not alone. But if you can always private message me. Okay. Thanks, everybody. All right. Look for the recording tomorrow. Good night. Sleep well.